Hi and welcome to Swedish Plant Guys. We get a lot of questions from you viewers. We read all of them, but we're not able to answer them in writing. So when we've gotten a question a couple of times, we try and take it up in a Q&A video like this one. Now we recommend you to watch the description below. You have all the questions, you have timestamps so you can skip forward to them. Look and see what topic you're interested in. Even if it's not your specific question, we try and give as full of an answer as possible. So we might be answering your question even if it's not your question. Now if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do, and hit that bell as well so you get a notification every time we put up something new. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps us a lot. And also share with your friends. Starting off with question number 1, and this is concerning our Q&A video, how to grow your plants bigger and thicker. Now if you want to watch that video, we'll put a link in the description below next to this question, so you can go and watch it later on. Now the question is, all of my plants are in self-watering pots and planted in a pumice clay mixture. How often should I fertilize for self-watering? Is it the same frequency as for pots with drainage? Thanks for these great videos. A good question. How often should you fertilize and how much should you give to your self-watering systems? Well, the question is quite simple. You use the exact same frequency, you use the exact same amount as you would have in a normal standard pot like this one. It's planted in normal standard soil here. If you have a self-watering system, just follow the instructions on the fertilizer you buy so you know how often you should give it and how much you should give it. Now I have one advice for you, and that is what I always do when I know that I've added fertilizer to a self-watering system is that in the water reservoir in the bottom, I always make sure that all of that water is sucked up or used by the plant so it gets dry down there before I add water again. Because then I know that all of the fertilizer is used by the plant. So you don't have, it could be that a lot of the fertilizer or the nutrients have gone through your system and ended up in that water down there. Now, if you start to add water again, you will still have a lot of nutrients in that water. But if you let the water be sucked up and let it dry out before you add that water, you know that all of it is used. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, use it in the same way as you would with normal soil. Moving on to question number 2, and this is concerning our All You Need to Know About Pothos video, and we'll put a link to that next to this question in the description below, so you can go and watch that later on. Now the question is, please show us the wire that you use for the pothos to climb. And I'll show you here. I have a pothos next to me, but it's so dense, so I don't think I can show you the wire here. But I have another plant here. This is the Scindapsus pictus. This is not a pothos. This is a Scindapsus. But I can show you how the wire works. Now, I should say that it's not, I haven't put this wire on this plant myself. We actually buy it like this directly from the grower. But you can do this yourself. It's quite easy. Now, what they've used here is actually just some sort of a intertwined metal wire on you can just cut out a flat sheet of a wire, and then you can just bend it so that it gets to be a little bit round in shape. That is what they've used here, because you can see here that you have two ends here of the wire. It's actually supposed to be flat like this. They just pushed it around, and then they have put it together with some metal wire here. You could use practically anything to just tie them together like this. And what you do then is that you put that in the middle of your pothos plant, in the middle of the pot, and then you just guide the vines up along this metal wire here. Now what they use in the garden centers, they use small clips. Let's see if I can get one off. They use small clips like this. See if they have bigger ones on the Pothos here. Yes, they have. Here you have them. Now they're just used to be able to clip around the metal wire and around the vine of the Pothos or the Scindapsus or whatever climbing plant you have. Now if you can't get these types of clips, my experience is just use a paper clip. Take a normal paper clip, just push it out so it becomes a long metal wire, and you can just clip it around the plant. Now what you do then is that you take somewhere where you have a node and a leaf coming out of that node. Underneath that leaf and that node, that is where you put the wire. And you can just put that wire around the metal wire to just hold it up like that. Now, in the beginning, when you do this, when you add these long vines to the metal wire, it will look quite bad. And this is because the leaves will be pointing in all directions. However, after a couple of weeks, all of the leaves that are standing up on this wire now is going to start to transform towards the light. So after a couple of weeks, it will look just like this, where you have all the leaves turned towards the light. And then you will have a nice wire like that. Another thing you can do, which is actually even more simple, is that you can use just bamboo sticks like these ones. Now what we use then is that we put them like a small tripod like this. You just push them down into the pot. You put something up here to bind them together like that, and then you let the vines grow on these poles. Now what you do then is that you just take the vine. You can take a vine here. And when you're going to let that grow up on the bamboo here, you just guide it around like this. And it will stay up. If you want to bind it, you can just use a paper clip again. But it will stay up if you just guide it around that bamboo like this. What will happen eventually is with the Pothos and with philodendrons and also with the Scindapsus, they will get air roots here that will grab on to the bamboo, so it will keep itself up. That is what it does in nature. It sends out air roots to grab a hold on the bark of a tree or whatever it's climbing on. That will happen here as well. It won't happen to the metal wire because it cannot attach itself to that small metal wire. So if you use a metal wire, you need to have some form of clips or something to just, paper clips to just hold it up. Usually it will take a couple of weeks before you start to see the air roots coming out, and another couple of weeks before they actually start to cling themselves onto the bamboo. But it takes quite some time before that happens. But if you do like this, if you just guide it around the bamboo, it will stay up by itself. Question number 3, and this is concerning our All You Need to Know About Pothos video. Now we will put a link in the description below next to this question, so you can go and watch that video after you watch this one. Now the question is, does the pruning also make other plants grow from nodes further up? For example, a Tradescantia, yellow hill. Now the question is, what we say in that video is that when you prune a Pothos or a philodendron or a Scindapsus, when you prune a vine plant, what happens is that you will get a fuller plant because you will get new growth from nodes further up the vine. So it will stop growing from that tip. You cut that tip away and it will start to grow from other nodes further up the vine. Now the question here is, will that work on other plants, like the Tradescantia? And the answer is yes. And actually, this works on all types of plants, not just vines. Now, what happens here, the chemistry behind this, is what we are doing when we cut away the vine here, we cut it off, a part of it. I'll do it here now, like that. What we've actually done is that we have taken away something called auxin. Auxin is a hormone that almost every plant have. And that hormone has one purpose. And that purpose is to make sure that the plant is continuing to grow and become bigger. And usually that means for a vine plant like this, it wants the vine to become as long as possible. It shouldn't start to be fuller and have more branches on it. That doesn't help this plant. What helps this plant is to grow longer. Every vine wants to be as long as possible. And why? Because it wants to reach the sunlight. It wants to climb on something and reach the sunlight. Same thing goes for almost any plant. A plant wants to become bigger, so it wants to grow upwards or sometimes a little bit sideways, but it wants to become bigger. And the auxin has this job. The auxin goes out to the tips, and what it does, it stimulates that tip to grow further, and it also suppresses the other latent buds that you have on the vine or on the plant, anywhere on the plant, so that all of that concentrated nutrients, the water, it will go up to this point and it will become longer. But what happens when I go in and cut away that? You actually cut away that tip, you cut away the auxin. What happens now is that all the latent buds that you have on all the other nodes on this vine here will get activated. Oh, we can grow now. We can actually grow, and it will start. So you will get a budding from this point, and you will get a budding from the next node and the next node. And how many of those nodes that will be activated is determined by two things. How strong your plant is, if it has a very high energy, if it has a lot of nutrients, it has the right amount of water. You could get a new budding from all of these nodes, all the way down until soil level. If you don't have that much nutrients, maybe just one or two at the where you've cut it off will be activated, and it will start to branch out like that. The other thing is that there will be new auxin. As soon as you cut away that auxin, the plant will start to send out new auxin to the new tip, of course, because the plant still wants to go upwards and become longer and bigger. As soon as that auxin reaches that tip, you have the same thing again. That tip will be where the plant wants to grow, and the other ones will not get as much nutrients. It will not get as much water, and it will continue to grow outwards. So by pruning all plants, what you're actually doing is that you're helping it to what we call back bud. And you're doing that by taking away the auxin and letting those other latent buds start to form and start to come to life, and it branches out. The same thing if you have a ficus plant. Often you want that ficus to be really dense. You want it to be like a nice ball with a lot of leaves. And you get that by letting it grow out. It wants to be bigger. You cut it, you prune it, you take away that auxin. It starts to bud on the interior. It becomes even fuller, and you get that nice full plant. It's the exact same thing as with vines. And yes, it works with the Tradescantia, so just keep on pruning it, a couple of times, at least once a year, but you can do it more often to get more branching and a fuller plant. Question number 4, and this is concerning our all you need to know about the Pothos video. And we'll put a link to the Pothos video in the description below next to this question, so you can go and watch that later on. Now the question is, aquarists like myself put Pothos in our aquariums. We put the stems and roots in the tank and the leaves outside of the tank. We do this because the plant feeds on the excess nutrients in the water, the ammonia, the nitrates, and so on. Aquarists love Pothos. It really helps us with algae control and water chemistry. It's a tough plant. My cichlid frequently attacks the roots and my Pothos continues to grow. I add only LED lighting for the Pothos. Pothos is the bomb. We love it. This is a very good comment. It's not really a question, it's just a comment. And I love this comment because I have had aquariums for almost all my life. I have a real big interest in that. And I've also had Pothos plants on top of aquariums and letting the roots and the air roots as well drop down into the water. And that works perfectly. It works perfectly for the plant and it works perfectly for the water chemistry inside of that aquarium. But I want to address one thing here. And when you put a Pothos on top of an aquarium and letting the roots go down into that water, what actually happens is that the Pothos creates water roots. And it can live on water roots, just water roots. It works perfectly. However, you cannot take that plant and then try and put those roots into soil. And we address this problem in 3 easy ways of propagating your Pothos video. We'll put a link to that video as well in the description below. Because one of the problems with Pothos is actually making that transition. If you take a Pothos that has water roots and try and make that into soil roots, it's not easy. And the other way around works the same way. The biggest problem you have when you're taking your Pothos and trying to adapt that to an aquarium is in the beginning, because you have a normal soil-rooted Pothos. If you try and take away all of that soil and put that into water, that transition is not easy. So this is something you have to consider with the Pothos. This is one of the biggest problems you can get with that, is that when you try and make a transition from soil root to water root or the other way around. But if you want to have your Pothos straight into water, if you want to have water roots, you need to be considering the nutrients in that water. In an aquarium, you get that nutrients because when the fish eats and poops, you have a full chemistry set inside of that water that creates ammonia, that creates nitrates, a lot of nutrients for the roots. But if you have a Pothos that you have in a glass jar, in a pot or something, straight in water, and it's not a cutting, you're not trying to propagate it to then put it into soil. You want it in water. You need to add nutrients to that water. Because in soil, you have nutrients. You can add nutrients when you fertilize as well, but you always have a small amount of trace nutrients in that. But in water, you don't. So if you don't start to add fertilizer, add nutrients, and keep a control on how much nutrients you have in that water, you will not succeed in the long run. So if you have water roots and you want to have it in water, make sure to be very careful with the nutrients for that plant. Question number 5. And this is concerning our all you need to know about the CC plant video. We will put a link to that video in the description below next to this question, so you can go and watch that after you've watched this one. Now the question is, What about the news that this plant is poisonous and not good to keep inside the house? Now, we've gotten this question so many times. And first of all, I just have to say, please watch the entire video, because we do address that the CC plant is poisonous. We do that in the end of the video. And I think a lot of people have missed that. But since it is a very, very common question and many people are very afraid that the CC plant is extremely poisonous, I take it up here as well in this Q&A video. So, yes, the CC plant is poisonous. However, the Pothos is also poisonous. The CC plant, but the reason that a lot of people are scared about how poisonous the CC plant is, that because about 10 years ago there was a rumor that later we got to know that it was a false rumor, but there was a rumor circulating that CC plants could give you cancer, that it was a cancerous product, a cancerous plant. Now, they proved that that is not true. So the CC plant will not give you cancer. However, you need to know that it is poisonous. But how poisonous is it? Well, you shouldn't eat the plant. You shouldn't eat it, your pets shouldn't eat it, and your kids shouldn't eat it. If you eat the CC plant, you will get a reaction. Now, how bad that reaction is completely up to the body it comes into. If you have a small child, will probably react more than to an adult. A cat could react more than a bigger dog. But it is poisonous, it will make you sick. So if you eat the CC plant, you should go straight to the hospital. But I have never heard of the CC plant killing someone. It's not that poisonous that it will kill you. And it will probably not kill your cats or your dogs either. But it is poisonous and you need to go to the hospital if you have consumed the plant. But our recommendation to you is that you don't need to be afraid of having a CC plant in your home. Make sure to keep it away from your kids, keep it away from the cats and the dogs, and you should be fine. Our recommendation is that when you have touched the plant, for example, if you have repotted your plant, or if you've pruned your plant, or if you've taken a microfiber cloth or something and just dusted it a little bit, then after doing that, go and wash your hands. Then if you do that, you will be fine. It's not that poisonous that you can't have it in your home. And like I said before, the reaction to this poison can be very individual. Some people might not even react to it. Some people could react really badly to it, but it will probably not kill you, so it's not that dangerous. Now that was all for this Q&A video. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel as well. Hit that bell so you get a notification every time we put up something new. And please share with your friends so that they can get all of this knowledge as well. Now until next time, hej då!